From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? But more importantly, what failure did you go through, and what lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now, don't let a perfectly good failure go by without you getting your lesson out of it. That's your reward for your troubles. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. I was going up and then down and then up and then down again. I finally got sick and tired of that and decided to stop yo-yo dieting and make some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my lifestyle, habits, routines, environment, community, and to my system of belief. It's all those things that made me, and they make you too. And I'm here each week to help people like you lose weight and keep it off. For good, right? Because that's what you're looking for, right? You're not just looking to come here and lose weight and then gain it back. I'd done that before. It's interesting. I'd lose the weight and I'd gain it back and I would say I failed. What does that mean? Oh, right. I lost weight. So why do I feel like I failed? It's because I actually meant I don't want to gain it back. I didn't just want to lose weight. I wanted to lose weight and not gain it back. So anytime I gained it back, that was really the failure that I kept repeating, was that part. And I tell you what, though, I learned a whole bunch of lessons from those failures. I learned a lot of lessons from those failures. One of the lessons I learned is I had to learn it the hard way because I insisted on learning it several times, which is cutting out all carbs is a terrible solution. It's just no good because I had proven to myself time and time and time again that Chris Terrell doesn't want to live life without carbs. So why am I asking myself to do that? Oh, right, because I picked up some belief from some other person that was also probably overweight that told me I should do it, right? Oh, I know. It's some dude on TikTok that tells me about it. Of course, I don't get to see what he eats all the time, but he's telling me the right way to eat. Of course, I didn't go verify anything. I would accept anything anybody would tell me. So that's one lesson I learned. Another lesson I learned is starving myself's no good. If I ask myself to eat way too little, I start acting out. I don't reach my goals when I ask myself to eat too little. I got to let myself eat enough. Eat enough to be happy. Eat enough to enjoy myself. Okay, that was one of the lessons I learned. You know what lesson I learned from eating an entire tub of peanut butter? It's knowing what to do isn't enough to actually get you to do it. Turns out if you just know how to lose weight, that doesn't mean you're going to do it. Right? Like I knew not to eat half the tub of the peanut butter. I'd already lost like 50 pounds and yet I did it anyway. Right? It's almost like knowing what to do isn't necessarily enough. There's more. There's more to this. It's something else, right? It's something inside of our mind that we've got to address, we got to deal with. And I've begun to realize that I often, whenever I want to change or get a new result, it's not enough to just find the plan. I have to find the right mindsets that I'm supposed to have to go with that plan. That was something a lot of diets that I went to didn't talk about. They didn't help me shift my thinking. They didn't help me shift my mindset. They didn't help me see my old problems through a new lens. As a result, I kept trying to solve my old problems with the same old solutions, which just kept getting me the same old results. For me to get results I'd never had before, I was going to have to do something I had never done before. In fact, I was going to have to do a lot of things I had never done before. And you know what's interesting is I've applied that theory to other parts of my life, and go figure. When I started doing things I had never done before, I started getting new results. I handled it that way. So what are we going to do? How about literally anything other than that? Because that clearly didn't work. Maybe twice we could try something, right? But on the third, fourth, fifth repetition, at a certain point, it's time to be like, I don't think this is working. I think it's time to do something else. And so any approach you take to learning weight loss, in my opinion, it should involve mindset work. It should involve helping you learn to see your old problems in a new way. One of the most powerful ways you can do that is by leveraging the power of a community. You're going to morph into your communities in life. And you'll notice many of you have multiple communities. You might have a work community, a church community, a home community. Maybe you have a social life or a hobby that has a community with it. It's all sorts of communities you can be a part of. When you're part of that, it's going to influence you and your choices. Your weight is a byproduct of your community. Your lifestyle, habits, routines, environment, and belief systems all play a role. But your community plays a huge role in it. One of the things I want you to do in your weight loss journey is look around. Look at the people you're surrounding yourself with. Are you surrounding yourself with winners? Are you surrounding yourself with people that are doing what it is you want to do? If you're only getting weight loss advice from other overweight people that have lost their weight and gained it back, you're getting the advice of yo-yo dieters. They might teach you how to lose weight, but you don't have a weight gaining or a weight loss problem. You have a weight gaining problem. That was the thing I realized. I realized I didn't have a weight loss problem. I had a problem with gaining weight every time I wasn't losing weight. I was binary. It was up or it was down. Where was the flat? Where was just maintenance? I never thought of that. The reality is I didn't know how to maintain my weight at any size. And so I wasn't ever getting advice or information on how to do that because my community wasn't trying to do that. No one in my community was talking about maintaining their weight. I can't look back before 5 years ago and think of anybody that was in my life with any regularity that was talking about managing their weight through the same weight. Because all the quote-unquote naturally thin people, I wasn't asking them because I already had all the answers. And all the people that were overweight, we were all talking about it because, well, we can actually let each other know that really we don't know what we're doing here and we're really feeling kind of hopeless about it. I don't know why I'm gaining weight. I just am. This isn't fair. Something's not right. It's this thing's fault. It's this person's fault. But just not realizing that I played a role. I played a role in that. Even if my role was nothing more than I picked the community I surrounded myself with, or I didn't choose to remove myself. So if you are looking to add new community into your life, I want to invite you to come join my free Facebook group. You can find a link to that by going to christerrellcoaching.com. And you can come join a massive group of mindset-first focused weight loss people. I've been in a lot of these Facebook groups, and they're talking about the keto. They're talking about the what other fad diet, any sort of extreme diet. And it's like, no, I'm here to learn about mindset first weight loss. Well, that's what this group is, right? I don't even let people talk about diets like keto. Actually, we'll remove those posts. We don't make it all about the weight loss numbers, but we do celebrate our victories, right? Both scale victories and non-scale victories. So I'd love to have you come be a part of that. All right, this week in the podcast, we are going to be reading from a really cool book. It's called The Power of Now. I have read from this book before here on the podcast. And a lot of you said that you really enjoyed the topic that we dug into in this book. I have been studying this book now, giving it a first reading for 2 years. Now, you might think, well, Chris, does that mean you read half of it and then stopped and you haven't picked it up for 2 years? No, I've been actively reading it for 2 years, but I read it a page or two at a time, and I might reread that page over and over again. I have other books, plenty of other books that I just blitz through them. A lot of books I read through them. If I find I'm not getting anything out of it, I set it down. I probably don't finish 70% of the books I buy. I get my nugget of wisdom out of it, and then I just walk away. Now, I come back and revisit books a lot. I will do that. But the way I look at it is like I paid $15 to get one tip that I took and applied in my life, and it changed my results in life. Like that, $15 well spent, right? Very happy to have done that. $25 well spent. But this book, I decided I wanted to do it different because I really wanted to shift my thinking. I wanted to really elevate my journey to being in the present. I had discovered on my journey the importance of being in the present moment. And that led me to Eckhart Tolle's book. And one of the things that he mentioned, I read the introduction. He said that basically, I'm going to use my own words, to pause. To just pause when you hit something that's important and just sit with it. And so I started doing that. And I would read something like, whoa, wow. And then I would just go away and try to observe it in the world. I would try to practice the thing I read before I moved on. Because if you don't change your behaviors, I don't know if you really learned something in the world of mindset. Like, the only way to really know if you learned it is not to be able to regurgitate it to somebody else. It's, did your behavior change? Because if your behavior is changing, well, then you know. But today I wanted to read from chapter 88, or sorry, not chapter 88, page 88. And let's see, I don't even remember. Do they do chapters per se? It is chapter 4, Mind Strategies for Avoiding the Now. And this hits some really interesting points. And some of this is going to get a little bit deeper. But I think you as a listener of the podcast, especially if you've been listening to me for most of the time, I think we can talk about this. I don't think this is too deep for anybody that's listening to the podcast. And this is really impactful to me, this page. Now, for those that haven't read the book, let me tell you the format of the book. He has a question that will be posed. And then he'll answer the question. And then there'll be another question. And then he'll answer it. And then another question. Then he'll answer it. You see kind of where I'm going here. It's question answer. It's a really cool way to write a book. So let me read the question that we're going to talk about. The question is this. I can see the truth of what you are saying, but I still think that we must have purpose on our life's journey. Otherwise, we just drift, and purpose means future, doesn't it? How do we reconcile that with living in the present? And I really like this because something I think about. We have to set a big weight loss goal. What's your big goal? What are you going for? What's the dream of dreams? What's the body weight that you know you want, but you're afraid to let anybody know that you want it, including yourself, but you know you want it? Like if I had a magic wand and said, look, I could guarantee you get it, and I could guarantee you could keep it. What size would you give me? Many of you have a number in your brain immediately. It's like, no, we can't have that. And you tell yourself a number 30, 40, 50 pounds heavier. But some of you'll be like, no, I want to be this. I want dream body. Okay, that's great. But we can't live over there, right? We just got to get an orientation because the reality is whether you got to lose 100 pounds, 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 200 pounds, 30 pounds, it doesn't matter. You got to lose the next 2 pounds. You got to lose the next 1 pound. It changes nothing. That just tells us where we stop. Tells us how long this journey may go on for, but we still got to lose the next pound, right? And people will sometimes struggle, myself included, with reconcile having a far-off goal and having a nearsighted goal, a close goal. So, and sometimes we feel that we have to have purpose, right? We have to have this deeper purpose behind things. And if we're just focused solely on the present, but not thinking about the future, I mean, aren't we just aimlessly wandering through life? How can I be sure I'll make it to my weight loss goal if I'm not worried about the future? So let's jump into what Eckhart says here. When you are on a journey, it is certainly helpful to know where you are going, or at least the general direction in which you are moving. But don't forget, the only thing that is ultimately real about your journey is the step you are taking at this moment. That's all there ever is. Now, when I read that, that hit me like a ton of bricks, and here's why. Because in the very beginning, I'm talking week 1 of my journey, I had a thought that I don't know that I had ever consciously been aware of this thought, and nobody fed me the thought. I didn't read it on an inspirational quote. No one had said it to me as far as I could recall. It's just a thought. But it hit me like a ton of bricks. And the thought was, it will always be the me of a present moment that makes the changes. It will always be the me of a present moment that makes the changes. Think about that. I had been spending my entire past saying future me is going to deal with it. And every time future me became present me, I kicked it off to future me again. I kept doing that. Dealing with the health of my body was always future me's problem, always future me's problem. Well, what happened when I turned 34 and realized I think I'm future me now? But it feels like present me. It feels this. I feel just as aware and present as I did when I was 15, right? The only thing that is ultimately real about your journey is the step you are taking at this moment. That's what Eckhart says in the book. The only thing that is ultimately real about your journey is the step you are taking at this moment. The only thing that is real about your weight loss journey is what you're doing today, what you're doing right now. Yesterday's done and over with. You can't change it, and the future ain't here. You ain't got a clue what's coming. You don't know. You don't know. And you're not meant to know. You don't need to know. But you know you're here right now. Because that's all there ever is right now. A week from today is going to feel just as present as right now does. Let's go back to the book. Your life's journey has an outer purpose and an inner purpose. The outer purpose is to arrive at your goal or destination, to accomplish what you set out to do, to achieve this or that, which, of course, implies future. You see, I realized somewhere along my weight loss journey, this was a realization over a couple of years, so I expect that for some of you, and I'm going to say this isn't like, for some of you, this will be the nudge you need. For some of you, this will just be another repetition you need before it'll sink in. But behind every goal is another goal. On the other side of every achievement is just another achievement you can go have because you're not dead. You can always do more. And at a certain point, you got to stop and go, why? It's okay that I'm going for more, but why am I withholding happiness from myself until I accomplish some goal that I said I need to get before I'll let myself be happy? I need to have X number of people give me accolades before I can be satisfied with myself. I'm the one that picked that. How many people do I need to have tell me I'm doing good enough before I'll believe I'm doing good enough? 1, 20, 30, 50? Who is it? Is there a specific list of people? The thing I noticed is it was always this ethereal, fuzzy, foggy others, right? No one specific, no specific number. Or maybe it's a certain number of accomplishments, right? Certain income level, a certain job title, a certain body weight, a certain home size, a certain whatever. It's like all these accomplishments, all these goals, I need to accomplish them and then I can feel good. Why? Why was I withholding all this? Why did I feel that it was so important to be suffering on my way to my goals? Why did I feel that it was so important that I feel like it hurt to have something? And one of the things that I would do is I would withhold my self-love. I would withhold my self-acceptance. I would withhold my inner peace and throw it on the other side of a goal because I noticed it caused me to want to get the goal. But in the meantime, I was miserable. And I'd get the goal and I'd have a little, I'd enjoy myself for a while. And then I'd, of course, as a normal human is, I'd set my sights on something higher. And so I would throw my self-worth or my self-acceptance or my happiness or my inner peace or whatever it was, I'd throw it on the other side of that goal. And now I'm miserable again, chasing the next goal. And then I'd get it and I'd let myself be happy. Notice how I said I let myself be happy. I let myself be happy and satisfied with where I'm at, what I got, until, of course, as a natural human, I set my sights on something higher. And I got to motivate myself to get there. So I throw something really valuable on the other side of the goal. You see where I'm going here? I can't let my inner peace, I can't let my fulfillment be tied to the attainment of a goal because it's fleeting. Let's go back to the book. But if your destination or the steps you are going to take in the future take up so much of your attention that they become more important to you than the step you are taking now, then you completely miss the journey's inner purpose, which has nothing to do with where you are going or what you are doing, but everything to do with how. It has nothing to do with the future. It has nothing to do with future, but everything to do with the quality of your consciousness at this moment. That's a heavy paragraph right there, heavy few sentences. We're going to deconstruct this. Let's go back to the beginning of this section. But if your destination or the steps you are going to take in the future take up so much of your attention that they become more important to you than the step you are taking now. What I take from this is, if everything I'm going to do next month, if I'm so caught up in worrying and planning and thinking about what I'm going to do in the future, that the future planning becomes more important than what I'm presently doing, now we've created a scenario that is ripe for problems. That's what this is setting the scene. So let me read this again. If your destination, where you're trying to go, or the steps you are going to take, your action plans in the future, take up so much of your conscious, I'm adding that word, conscious attention, that they become more important than what you're doing now. So if the weight I'm going to lose in 2 weeks becomes more important than the weight I'm going to lose today, then you completely miss the journey's inner purpose. I was sad when my weight loss journey was done. I was sad. You know why I was sad? I was sad because I discovered my weight loss journey was giving me a proving ground. It was giving me a place I could grow. It was giving me a reason to become more aware of myself, to become more aware of my choices, to become more aware of my thoughts, to become more aware of my actions, to become more aware of my role that I play in my results. Let's read this again. Take up so much of your attention that they become more important to you than the step you are taking now, then you completely miss the journey's inner purpose, which has nothing to do with where you are going or what you are doing, but everything to do with how. You see, the weight loss journey, I'm a different person now than I was 5 years ago. I'm a different person. And it's not slightly different. Like if you met me before and then that guy left the room and then I walked in immediately, you'd be like, you look familiar, but you would not think I'm the same person. The way I acted is different. The way I talk is different. You'd recognize the voice, sure. But when I watch old videos of me, I'm like, wow, that guy really doesn't I see a little bit of me in him, but there's a lot of stuff in the way. You see, I became something else along the way. I didn't suddenly become myself. It was an arriving over time. And that was the purpose of the journey. The purpose of the journey was for me to evolve, for me to grow. It has nothing, and back to the book, it has nothing to do with future, but everything to do with the quality of your consciousness at this moment. You see, the weight loss journey, what it did is it regularly brought me to the present moment. The greatest gift of my weight loss journey was not the gift of weight loss. It was not the gift of not being ruled by my emotional eating tendencies. What it was the gift of was discovering the joy of the present moment. That's what the gift was. What do you think you got to do to get you through those hard moments? When you're so stressed about what's happening in the world, when you're so stressed about what's coming up tomorrow, you find your solace is in the here and the now. Because if you look around you in the here and the now, right now, this very moment, this very instant, you'll see that there's often not that many problems that are presently happening at this instant. And if there are, you'll find there's usually something you can do about it that is quite manageable in the present. Usually, not always, but usually. You'll find that we often find the present moment to be unbearable because we're not actually in the present moment. Our mind, sure, our body is, but our mind has been cast off into some imagined future. Or our mind has been sent back to the past to relive something. Or we just jump into our imagination and wildly imagine what the future past could be or what our present reality might have been if the past had been something different. But not being where we are. We slip into a sort of unconsciousness to our present reality. And my weight loss journey helped me discover this. You see, the weight loss journey is going to be difficult, not because mechanically it's hard. You'll find that once you kind of do it for a few months, you'll see the mechanics really aren't that difficult. You'll pretty much everybody has a formula that if you find the formula, you can make it work. And it might take you 2 or 3 months to dial in your formula. And if you're an impatient person at the present day and you're not willing to learn patience, that may be too tall of an ask for you. That may be saying, hey, if you're willing to give it 3 or 4 months, you can find your formula and you got it. It might take less, but it could take up to 3 or 4 months. An impatient person's just going to walk on by. They're not going to be willing to do it. But you see, even if you are willing to do it, even if you're willing to be patient, you're willing to dial it in, what you'll notice when you get there is there's an obstacle in the way of your success. And it's not carbs. And it's not that you don't like the gym. You're going to find that it's the man in the mirror. That's what you're going to discover. The man in the mirror is your greatest adversary, or the woman in the mirror. The person in the mirror, the you in the mirror, looking back at yourself. That's going to be your greatest adversary. Mastery over oneself is a worthwhile endeavor, but it is not easy. I began my journey to myself from a place of total unconsciousness. I didn't know. I was getting in my own way in so many different ways, and I didn't know. I can look back in my past and actually see how people tried to tell me, and I didn't listen. I can look to where I read the information I needed to have the success I wanted, and I didn't do it because I wasn't aware of who I was. I wasn't aware of what I was capable of doing. I was still living a life ruled by being overly concerned with the opinions of others of how I live my life. I was overly concerned with financial success. I was overly concerned with looking like I'm a certain kind of person to others. I was overly concerned with managing the feelings of everybody around me, which is interesting because I couldn't even manage my own. What business did I have trying to manage the feelings of others? So, of course, I was failing to manage my own and failing to manage others, which only fueled the internally held belief that I had, which is that I'm a fraud in pretty much every area of life. The job I'm in, I'm a fraudster. Everybody's going to find out. My relationship, I'm a terrible husband. Everybody's going to find out. As a son, I'm a terrible son, and everybody's going to find out. And my personal finances, I'm so bad with money, and everybody's going to find out. I was so worried that I was going to be discovered that I was always living on edge. I was always living in fear. And the reality is I just kept taking the safe route in life. Tell me the safest path and I'll take that one. When faced with choices, I'd pick the one that was a more surefire thing because I didn't trust my ability to handle failure. I didn't trust that if I had a big failure, I could take it. Unfortunately, that resulted in me getting mediocre results under the best of circumstances. Because you see, even when I took the safe route, not everything went according to plan. Jim Carrey said you can fail at doing what you don't love, so you might as well take a chance at failing at what you love. You deserve to have the body of your dreams. You deserve to have a life of happiness. You deserve to be in shape. You deserve to be healthy. You deserve those things. You don't need to do anything. You just deserve it right now as you are. Doesn't matter what you've done in your past. You've always deserved it. But you see, I spent so much of my life just living in the past or worried about the future that I completely and totally forgot about all the power I have in the present moment. Because the results that I have in the future are going to come as a result of the choices I make in the present. And the choices I make in the present are going to come as a result of the thoughts that I think in the moment. And the thoughts that I think in a moment are often going to be my habitual thoughts. So if my habitual thoughts are disempowering, I'm often going to have disempowering emotions, and I'm going to take slightly disempowering action, which is going to get me less optimal results, which will only fuel my disempowered beliefs. You see, you got to start with belief, I realize. You got to change the beliefs you have inside about yourself, about what you're capable of doing, about what you're capable of accomplishing in the future, but recognizing that your future exists now. What you do today is what will dictate what happens in the future. Thankfully, though, very rarely is a choice that impactful. We can look to our past and all see a handful, and you'll probably see it's just a handful of moments that you're like, this fundamentally altered the trajectory of my life, and there was no walking it back. You can see those. There's some you made that you're unaware of, though. You're not aware of all of them, but you're aware of many of them. But you probably also can see that they don't make up the majority. And what's cool is no one decision really affects your future that much. No one decision is often that important, but all of them are important. I like to pose this question: what's the most important step you take when running a marathon? And a lot of people will say the last one, or the first one, or the one in the middle. And I like to then say, it's all of them. I've run a marathon a few times, and let me tell you, I had to take every step I took to get there. And yet, I could have skipped a few. I could have skipped a step here or there, taken a double step, right? I could have added a step here and there, and it wouldn't have made too big of a difference. But if I skip too many steps, that means I'm running faster, taking longer strides. Well, I may not have been able to do that. Or I could have taken shorter steps, but that would have made it take longer, and I might have run out of gas. The reality is the journey mattered because it's the one I took. And on your weight loss journey, no one moment matters more than any others, generally speaking. And yet, when you get to the other side of this and you turn around and look backward, you're going to think you needed them all because you did, because they're what got you there. I want you to look to your past and realize everything you did, everything that's happened to you back there, you needed. You may not be aware of why you need it, but you need it. It's there. But sometimes we're too afraid to go to our past and find the lessons, find the takeaways that we could apply to our life. So we get stuck. Feeling like the future is going to look a lot like now when we don't even really know what now looks like. Because we don't live in it enough. Because, I don't know if you know this, but vanishing into a movie isn't living in the now necessarily. You could be present with the movie, but are you looking at your life? Are you looking at your life situation? A lot of problems in life, we can deal with them if we will deal with them. But a lot of times I think people do what I did. If I just ignore it for long enough, maybe it'll go away on its own. One can hope, right? One can hope. All right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. I hope this episode was helpful. If you're a Spotify listener, you could tell me about it. I'd love to hear what you think. Any takeaways, any epiphanies, any aha moments, or any questions that maybe arose in your mind, arisen. What's the word there? That came up in your mind. Tell me in the comments. I'd love to read them. I've been really enjoying the Spotify feature giving me comments. It's the most feedback I've ever had on the podcast ever. So I want you to know I truly love reading every one. I get very excited every day to check and read those. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, if you found this episode to be helpful, please consider giving the podcast a rating and a review. And mean a lot to me if you did. And don't forget about coming to the free Facebook group. You can find a link to that by going to christerrellcoaching.com. All right. Have a great week, champion. Can't wait to see you next week at the podcast.